The most sued man in English history. In fact, he was sued by the late Robert Maxwell. And after the case, he had made this wonderful statement, and I love this, and sort of sums him up. I've just given a fat check to a fat check. Who else could have said that but Ian Hislop? Ian, welcome to the show. What an introduction.
Yeah, thank you very much. Probably the most expensive single joke I've ever made. £250,000.
Is that what it cost?
Yep.
God. See, well, at that time, Ian, people thought that would have brought down Private Eye.
Yeah, well, it very nearly did. We just about survived by sort of throwing ourselves on the charity of our readers.
They would hate to have seen the end of it, and I'm sure you would have got all the support, and you did, that you deserved. Ian, how would you describe yourself? A satirist, a historian, a magazine editor, a screenwriter, a journalist, a comedian, a comedy writer, or a TV star?
That's about it, yeah. What a flattering intro.
Do you enjoy, is the bit of Irish blarney, do you enjoy celebrity status? Because you come across, of course, as a sort of a realist, if you don't mind me saying so, feet on the down-to-earth man. And here you are as probably one of the best-known TV faces in Great Britain.
Yes, it's very bizarre. My colleagues on Private Eye, which is a sort of a very down-to-earth satirical magazine, whenever they want to be rude to me, they say, "I gather you're going off to be a celebrity now." There is no higher disdain for them. So it is slightly odd, but I'm sufficiently realistic to enjoy the good things it can deliver. And it is, in our modern age, it is a very useful leverage. I mean, I can make documentaries about the First World War, which I'm not sure people would put on if it wasn't for the fact that my mug's on television frequently.
Sure. What is, looking at your family history, this interview is a bit like This Is Your Life, but looking at your family history, it was, I think, your adopted, or it was maternal grandparents grandfather who was a soldier?
Yes. Well, no, both my grandparents, actually, on both sides. One of them fought in the Boer War, which shows you how old he was, and he was a sort of career British soldier. And my grandfather, who was a headmaster, fought in the First World War. He briefly went to Europe for 4 years, 14, 18, and didn't go back.
That's a sad ending there, Ian.
Well, he was very Scottish and very parochial, and I think a lot of people, the war was quite enough of abroad forever. Yeah.
So is that your inbred interest in war? Do you think
yes, I think so. And I am of a generation of sort of, probably applies to a lot of people in Europe, but I mean, we didn't have to do anything, and we're the first. And it's a peculiar freedom and sort of an odd position historically to be in. So I'm slightly fascinated, obviously, by the sort of awful experiences of my forebears.
Well, you've interesting life. I sort of been looking into your life. I feel like I know you intimately.
How very worrying.
Yeah. So while you were going to bed last night, I was peeping around, and you're quite travelled, almost like a gypsy here. You've done Nigeria, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia and Hong Kong all in school years.
Yes, well, my dad was a civil engineer, and he worked on big marine engineering projects. And so I had this extraordinary life of spending 4 years here and 4 there. And again, I mean, I lived in both Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, and I think I was at the same school as Osama bin Laden in the 70s, which is a very dubious... What a claim to fame.
Yes, I went to school with... Yeah, absolutely, sounds brilliant. And when you returned to school and back to school in Britain, I'm delighted to say, and I'm not surprised by it, you became the head boy of that school.
Yes, that's very embarrassing. As a satirist, the idea that I was firmly establishment at the age of 18 is obviously something I try and cover up.
Did you have monitors cleaning your shoes?
We had fagging, yeah, we had all that. It was a very old-fashioned
Excuse me, just stop there. Fagging. I don't know what your man's a fag. I don't want them to think that fagging is something terribly different when you go to public school. Fagging is the sort of your junior boys, you're sort of the officer in charge, and you've got juniors looking after your tuck shop and all your bits and pieces.
Exactly. How very good of you to explain that. It was a bizarre system where I was living abroad. For example, we were living in Hong Kong, and my parents had servants, and then they sent me back to a school in Britain in which I slept in a dormitory of 30 boys, and there were no curtains. It is the British upper class's idea of an education is endlessly entertaining.
Yeah, I was in boarding school. I wasn't too keen in boarding school, but, you know, a boy made a pass at me. I can't go into too much detail at this thing. But I was only 12 or 13 at the time. I was actually in prep school at the time. It sort of put me off going to sleep at night. You know what I mean?
Yeah, as it would.
I had to sit up all night. But from then on, you went to Oxford, and I love this. You're a founder and editor of a magazine called Passing Windine.
Yes, it's not the most subtle of titles, is it?
Yeah. But there's where you interviewed Richard Ingram. This brings us nicely into Private Eye. When Ingram left Private Eye, I see my old mate, what's his name, wasn't too keen in you taking over. Poor old, God, I can't, his name.
Is it Mackay, Dempster?
Dempster.
Yes.
Old Nigel wasn't too keen on you, Ian, taking over the reins, as they said.
No, well, I mean, I was given this job editing a successful satirical magazine when I was 26. And a lot of middle-aged men, which obviously I now am, and so I can sympathise.
You're wearing well, Ian.
Well, they thought, what on earth is this upstart being given the job for?
Yeah.
And they were furious. And my reaction, being 26 and very confident, was to sack them.
Poor, I couldn't believe Nigel's gone. God,
yeah, and now he's no longer with us.
I had a great bit of fun with Nigel Dempster in Dublin once. I was looking after a young girl. I don't want to make so too many.
In what particular capacity?
If I say the name Mandy Smith.
Ah, yes.
Okay, stop press. Now, we were invited to go on a show called The Late Late Show in Dublin.
Yep, which I know is very famous.
You know, and Gay Byrne wasn't on this particular night, and they decided, the good Catholic country that they are, that they would withdraw Mandy Smith.
Oh, in terms of immorality?
Well, yes, just sleeping with a Rolling Stone, you can become famous. They didn't want to spread that around. They left that to priests. So well, I've just done a programme on the...
Is this show still on? Or
Anyway, Nigel Dempster was a guest, but he was a lot of fun because he kept saying, well, where's Mandy Smith? We're waiting for Mandy Smith. So that's my last time I saw Nigel, and then unfortunately he had passed on. Can we get on to a programme that the audience absolutely love you down here? And certainly a great favourite of my wife is Have I Got News For You? Now, how did that come about, that programme?
Well, there was people are always trying to do television shows about the week's news. There have been lots of them over the years, and sort of various attempts. And I'd been working a bit with Paul Merton in a television show which nobody watched, luckily, in the south of England. But the producer thought, wouldn't it be a good idea to put those two together? And they set up a show, and they were casting around for a chairman. And we did a pilot, and they had someone else doing it, and they fastened upon this young comic actor called Angus Deaton, and they put out the show, and almost immediately all the personal dynamics, you might say, established themselves, and the show seemed to take off.
Is it rehearsed?
No, it isn't.
That's unbelievable. These lines by you and Paul are not rehearsed. Unbelievable.
Well, as Paul always says, God, if we did some rehearsal, the show would be a hell of a lot better.
It is unbelievable, because I knew that you didn't rehearse it, but I'm just saying that for the audience sake, that you think that you spend script writers weeks working on these shows.
Well, no, I mean, everything the chairman says, you can see he reads off the autocue.
Absolutely.
So, there's a script there. But Paul and I mean, Paul literally, he's sort of more fervent about this. He said, I've spent my whole life trying to get into a job where I don't have to do any work. So the idea that I'm going to work beforehand is little short of libelous.
If you were to write a book called Have I Got News For You, who would you put up as your favourite host of the book, show?
It would have to be Boris Johnson. I know I should actually apologise for ever having him on the show, because he then became mayor, and I've got an awful feeling it might be our fault.
Yeah, well, that's not bad. Look, because I have, incidentally, I have my top 10 dinner guests.
Oh, yes.
Of which you're one of them.
Oh, well, that's very, very flattering.
Dead or alive. Joining Clement Freud.
Yeah.
Boris Johnson.
Ah, you see. People can't resist him.
Peter Ustinov.
Yeah.
And Peter Kay.
Oh, well, I'm in incredibly good company.
So I think you'll enjoy it. Stew or fish?
Stew.
I just want to make a note. Meat eater. Okay.
Yeah.
We've got to move on because time is beating us, because I could speak all day to you and you have no time to speak to me, and I have to get to the news. I want to find out just a few things about you. I love your religious point of view. The Caroline Charters book, Why Am I Still an Anglican? You say in a chapter that I've tried atheism and I can't stick at it. I keep having doubts.
I'm afraid that's true. Every time I think, oh no, honestly, really, it is time. And then I slip back again, I'm afraid. So yes, I am there. One of Caroline Charters' husband is a bishop, and I think he once identified what he called a great tradition of Anglican agnosticism.
But are you not a churchgoer?
I am. I'm not terribly. I'm sure my vicar, if he hears this, would say, well, you're not very often. But I do go. Yes, I go.
Excellent.
On a Sunday morning in my village.
And you're going to attend. Are you attending Jeffrey Archer's Christmas Yorkshire Pud? What in a shepherd's pie this year?
No, do you know I'm off his Christmas card list? But I'll be thinking of Jeffrey.
I think Mary took you off it, to be quite honest with you. Now, just quickly, also I want to also salute you for some of your writing. Things like I never realised that you wrote the scripting of Sptting Image.
Yeah, that was almost my first job.
Brilliant. Absolutely.
I mean, early 80s, fabulous. They had these puppets, and basically, they didn't know what they were meant to say. And a whole gang of us, Harry Enfield and myself and Nick Newman and Alistair McGowan, all those sort of types from the early 80s said, well, we'll write it. And we wrote the scripts. It's
a pity that programme should be more useful now than it would have been then. I mean,
yeah, I mean, it's
the gallery. Bin Laden on, dancing with maybe, Gordon Brown's wife, and all would be fantastic.
Well, we did 10 years of it, and I think by the end of it, everybody was pretty fagged out. But, there's always room for satire.
Fagged is the word tired, by the way. I just got to tell our audience when you keep mentioning fags, you see.
Sorry, yes. It's my upbringing. It's very poor.
Very faggish.
Yeah.
We're going to let you go. Good Christmas present, guys. Private annual. It's going to go on our website, Ian, and people can order it on our website, joining your wife's lovely book. And what are you doing for Christmas?
Well, I think if I can get my wife back from researching her next book, which she's been in Greece a lot, she's coming back again. My daughter's coming back. She's been in Spain for a year.
Whereabouts is she in Spain?
She's been in Madrid. So I'm hoping to get the family together to have a fairly English Christmas after a very European year.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. Well, listen, have a wonderful English. How's the weather back in O'Blighty today?
Oh, don't even ask.
Oh, brilliant.
Don't even ask.
Good to hear. Good for our tourism. Do you ever get down to this part of Spain?
Occasionally. I've been there with Victoria a few times.
We'd love you to do a charity after dinner down here. It would be absolutely brilliant.
Okay.
But I'm sure you're very busy. Ian Hislop, thank you so much for joining us, giving some of your time. Have a great day and have a brilliant Christmas. Love to your darling wife.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.